Howdy folks, welcome back to Eagle's Nest. Now, let me tell you about a little fiasco with my 25 Creedmoor. If you guys actually been following my channel, I've been playing around with the 25 Creedmoor for quite some time, and I finally got it nailed down. Now, I am going to be competing in a NRL Hunter match on the 14th here in Paulden, Arizona, in Gunsight, and I hope this thing performs. Now, I've had quite a few struggle with this 25 Creedmoor on a different action. Let me guys tell you my story. Stay tuned. All right, folks, so what you see in front of you here is my NRL Hunter Series rifle, and I am going to be competing in a heavyweight division in a couple of weeks. Now, as you can see, this rifle is configured with a very heavy contoured barrel, so you guys are probably wondering how I'm making weight, and in fact, this rifle actually makes 14.6 pounds as configured with a suppressor. This suppressor is a thermal suppressor. It's one of the only ones out there besides the Area 419 that has a built-in muzzle brake. It's very effective out here in this wide open area for sound mitigation. However, I will be using some earring protection just in case. So the rifle itself is a HNT 26 chassis. It is chambered in 25 Creedmoor. This barrel is a Schillen Select Match heavy contour number 7. It is a 26-inch barrel. And the action that I have here is a Pristine action. Now, I'll be talking about this action and my experience with this, along with some of the failures that I had with this action, kind of as a learning experience, both in what I came across. Now, this action itself, sitting inside a HNT 26 chassis, I am using a Valdetta G2 mini scope, which is a 4.5 by 28 by 50 objective. And basically I got some hand loads, 135gr Berger hybrids that I have pushing around 2,916 feet a second. So like I mentioned in this video, I want to emphasize dedicating brand new brass for a rifle. What I ended up having earlier was a failure to extract, or basically really hard extraction, causing me to smack the bolt up, which unfortunately caused a failure on this action. This action is fairly new in the market. They are based out of Canada. Again, this is Pristine action. Trying to hit the market pretty hard on the NRL or PRS style competitions. And I specifically chose this because it does make weight and it is very smooth. So this is something that I wanted to try out. However, when smacking the bolt up, when trying to extract the rounds, I've actually had the bolt knob break off. So I'm not going to put the blame on Pristine action. Obviously my hand loads was causing issues. However, I am no He-Man when smacking a bolt, and typically that may happen occasionally. So I did talk to them about the bolt handle design, having a set screw, kind of compromising, in my opinion, the integral structure of the bolt body. Now this is where all the mechanical force is being applied, and that set screw is there basically to get rid of any bolt handle slop. This is dovetailed into the bolt body itself. So I headed over to my neighbor's house, and fortunately he had a TIG welder, and we ended up TIG welding this bolt back together, also filling in that actual set screw hole. In our opinion, it did make this bolt a hell of a lot stronger. Now, it obviously is not good looking, it's ugly as sin, but it did make this thing pretty much usable. Now, after pondering for a couple days, I did make the decision to go ahead and swap out the action, and after talking to my good friend Ray from the X-Ring channel, after making fun of me, he pretty much had a good point. Having a TIG welded bolt handle really doesn't represent me very well, so I went ahead and swapped it over to an Origin action, and luckily the Origin action does share the same thread TPI as the Pristine. Now this is basically a Savage tenon, and we went ahead and cut the shoulder back a little bit and got it headspace right at minimum. Go gauge in the bolt. Let's see if it closes down. Awesome. Okay, now is it over headspace? Let's go ahead and put a 2/1000 masking tape, or a piece of masking tape which gave me a 2/1000. Let's see if that closes down. All right, masking tape in the back of the go gauge, that will simulate 2/1000, so that should be right there in between the go and no go. Let's see if this closes down. And it does not. So that is exactly where I wanted to be. Headspace right at 2 thou between the go and no go. So perfect. Now I'm happy. So folks, I wanted to emphasize the moral of the story here is dedicating brand new brass for your precision rifle build. especially when you have a matched chamber. Now, I did have a previous 25 Creedmoor barrel, and it is a different chamber made by a different company. The one that I have is from JGS, and I believe the one that was chambered by Crown Ridge Barrels was a PTG. But regardless, having brand new brass dedicated to that specific rifle will alleviate some of the extraction issues. For instance, it was kind of a perfect storm. That Pristine action didn't really have a really good primary extraction system, so it didn't really have enough force to break the seal from the fire-formed brass. Now, this brass being shot from a previous different rifle expands differently in that chamber. Even though I did full-length size this thing down to basically the lowest setting of this full-length sizing die and bumping the shoulders back quite significantly, like 6 to 8 thou. Brass has a spring back memory. Now, this is something I talked about in previous reloading videos a long time ago, and I did break my rule about using brass from a fired different rifle. So with the matched chamber, this brass, even though it's been full-length sized and shot from a different rifle, it wanted to basically expand differently and larger at basically the neck area here, or the head area. And this did not allow the brass to easily extract out of the new chamber of the rifle here. So like I said, it is highly recommended to dedicate brand new brass like this with your precision rifle and low develop, and set this brass aside specifically for that rifle. Now, further in this video, we're going to do some testing. I do have basically 300 cases of Alpha Munitions OCD2 25 Creedmoor brass, and this thing looks great. So this is small rifle primer. It does have the OCD2 technology. I don't know if you guys can see that. There's a little step on the bottom of the primer pocket, which kind of helps put more meat around that primer pocket and keep it from getting worn out over time. I do also have this big ass bag of Peterson brass, and this brass is 25 Creedmoor as well, but it is also in large rifle primer. So we're going to do a comparison downrange with large rifle primer and small rifle primer, see what kind of groups we get with this brass as compared to the Alpha Munitions OCD2 brass. All right, so here's the rifle configured as is now. Now, it does have a different scope on there, and as it's configured with the suppressor, it is right at 15 pounds, so I am 1 pound under the heavyweight division. Now, of course, this thing is set up more like a PRS rig, competing in NRL Hunter series, but it does qualify, and what makes it qualify is this HNT 26 chassis. So this one now has an origin action from my little fiasco I've had with the Pristine action, but to kind of go over this rifle build here, same thing, does have the show and select match barrel. I head spacer right at the minimum SAMI spec. Overall length of this cartridges that I'm using with Alpha Munition brass is 2.860. Now, I am running into a mag issue, and the only thing I found to actually feed very well is these metal MDT mags that allow me to go up to 2.890. So I'm trying some polymer mags. The Magpul polymer mags allow for 2.870 max overall length. I do want a little bit of leeway for it to feed better. But let's get this on paper. Let's see if it holds a group with this new brass that I got. I'm running small rifle primer on this one, and 41 grains, 41.2 and 41.4. All right, let's try 41.4 with Alpha Munition brass. Yep, that feeds good. Ejects great. That was the same hole. So brand new brass is key when you're having a brand new rifle. You do want to dedicate brand new brass for every new rifle you have, specifically matched chambers like this one. And the reason for it, as you can see in my previous experience, that using brass fired from a different chamber and a different reamer, it does cause issues with it extracting. Brass does spring back. It does have a sort of a memory, so to say. So it's going to want to go back to its original first fired dimensions, and that could cause issues with your extraction. Now, this being brand new brass, I'm not seeing any of those issues at all, and pressures look great. All right, guys, 25 Creedmoor doing its job. That was 41.2 grains right there, 41.4 up there, and that's 5 shots, 4 in one hole, 1 to the top left. So this thing is doing pretty damn good. Pretty happy with that. These were the previous shots with the Pristine action, holding about 0.6 inch group. The Zermatt with the alpha brass seems like it's holding a better group. So let's go take some shots down at 1,000 yards. So first target we're going to shoot at is a 709 yard target, and it's calling for 4 mils. Let's see if we hold left edge and send it. Should be able to nail that thing. You ready?
Yep.
Look low. Let me come up for 2. Impact. So 4.2. Next target we're going to go for is a full size or 3/4 IPSC. Let's try 7.3. Let me get the camera adjusted. Ooh, that was way low. Okay, that was right edge. So 7.6, left edge, 2/10 hold. That was a skim packed. We'll give it a 4/10 hold. Left edge. So right in between to that. That was a good hit. All right, we have one target up there in the hill. It's 1,064. We'll go 8.2. We'll hold 4/10 left, almost 1/2 mil. I think I'm hitting right above it. Impact. On the last shot. So 25 Creedmoor is doing it good, and the brand new brass is holding up. So I'm going to stick to that 41 grain load. I think I'm a little bit low on velocity. If I'm 8.3 at this distance, I got to do reverse dope and see what kind of velocity I'm hitting. Well, folks, the more I keep playing with this 25 Creedmoor, I am seeing better results, and this is the velocities that I'm getting with a small rifle primer with alpha munition brass. So I'm curious to see which one performs better. This is large rifle primer, CCI 200s with Peterson brass, same powder charge, 41.4 grains of Hodgdon 4350, and still same overall length with the 135gr Berger. Now, one of the things I'm going to emphasize is 100-yard groups really don't show much downrange. So this is pretty much cold bore. Make sure I'm zeroed out. Yep. 2913 feet a second. 2928. Pretty much consistent groups and some pretty good velocity. 2922. So one thing to really emphasize for shooting groups at 100 yards, though this is a really good group, what I try to explain to folks is that there's something called ballistic coefficient deviation. You can't really necessarily judge the performance of that round with just 100-yard shooting. So to kind of explain ballistic coefficient deviation is that every single rifle, the barrel themselves, engraves the bullet a certain amount, a certain way, which will alter the BC value of the actual projectile. And the BC values that's listed on the boxes are basically the BC values that are tested at sea level, at a certain barrel length and a certain type of barrel manufacturer with X amount of lands and grooves. So essentially those BC values can change at long distance, and that's where you start getting your vertical striation on target. So focusing your groups at 100 yards essentially isn't going to tell you much. So here's the last 5 shots. Now this was the same load with the CCI large rifle primer. Here's the first shot, a little bit of a cold bore shift, and then the next 4. And you can see that those groups are really good. What I'm looking for is the carbon imprint on the outside of the bullet hole impact. I want to see consistent carbon ring, and that's going to tell me that this bullet was stabilized pretty well. So this is a small rifle primer load, same powder charge, and you can see that the group isn't as well. But what I'm noticing is, like, if you guys can see this, kind of hard to zoom in and focus, there's more of a carbon ring imprint on the bottom of the target. This one too has more of an imprint on the left side, bottom left. Same thing with this. That's telling me that that load really isn't fully stabilized at this distance. The large rifle primer load, it seems to be a little bit more stabilized, but we're going to give this thing a shot at long distance and see how this performs. All right, so with the new velocity inputted onto the Kestrel, first target we're going to try this out on is 711 yards. Let's see if we can just hold dead center and see what kind of spin drift we have on this, if any. Okay, so there is a little bit of spin drift. Got the hold basically 2/10 left. But that's a solid impact. So the main thing I want to see is how does it hold up consistently. Let's go ahead and keep throwing some rounds downrange. Impact dead center. So we do have the IPSC target now at 1,016. Let's see if we can hold about 1/2 mil. Impact. So that looks like it was just high. Let's go 7. I can see that spot right there, dead center. That was a good wind call. That was just high. Come down to 10th, 1/2 mil left. Let's send it. Perfect. That's just below the water line. We're looking for vertical dispersion now. Perfect on the water line. So I'm going to say that this load seems to be a lot more accurate than the small rifle primer. It's holding a better water line. Unfortunately, my target cam isn't up and running right now, but I can see it on my reticle. It's right on the black strip on that IPSC target, holding about 6 or 7 inch group at this distance. I'm really happy with this 25 Creedmoor. I think the large rifle primer is the way to go, at least for this rifle. Now, if you guys are looking into this caliber, I highly recommend doing a test. You get a small batch, a small rifle primer and large rifle primer, and see how it performs out of your rifle. Honestly, speed isn't everything. If you're looking for precision, you could hover around that 2850 FPS. If you're looking to build a rifle specifically designed for competition like NRL or PRS, the 2850 bar kind of slows it down enough and also mitigates the recoil a little more than 2,900 feet a second, which I can feel a little more recoil on this load. That allows you to spot your misses if need be. It also allows you to potentially watch your bullet trace when shooting distances like this. So overall, I'm very happy with this build. Anthony did a very good job chambering this rifle. Obviously, I did fix it and basically re-headspace it to the origin action. It is shooting tighter on this origin action than it was on the Pristine action. And this thing does feel like butter. I've always had really good luck with origin actions. It's always one of my highest recommendations, best bang for the value action in my opinion. So I'm hoping to get some match footage on the NRL Hunter match coming this Saturday with my teammate. We have quite a few pretty big name competitors that kind of intimidating, but we'll see how we stack up and how these 25 Creedmoor stack up, and let's see how well we do. So you folks stick around, stay tuned. Thanks for watching, folks. Y'all stay safe. I'll see you in the next video.